One thing that you looked up and said, this isn't impossible, is at 12 years old, your mom wanted you to get a Nintendo and buy it yourself. And so you worked at the door factory for $2.10 an hour. What was that story like?
So, it's funny. I actually think that Nintendo thing is more responsible for my obsessive level of work ethic than just about anything. So for better or worse, man, we are products of our childhood. And I wish that our childhood wasn't as influential as it is. So my parents didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up. Now, I used to think I grew up poor. I have now seen poverty. I did not grow up poor, but I grew up in a way where my parents would not give me the things that I wanted. So I wanted a Nintendo and my parents said no. And at first it was just no, they just didn't want me to have one. And then it became as a way to keep me from getting it. They said, well, you can have it, but you'd have to pay for it yourself. And that fed into my dad's fetish, which is in the Bilyeu household, we worked. And that was just it. And from the time I was 12 years old, I have had a summer job every single year. And then by the time I was a junior or senior year in high school, I was working all through the school year plus summers. And then I worked 2 or 3 jobs through college. So it was just, that's what you did. And so because of my family being blue collar families, the only thing that I had access to were a door factory or a paint factory or whatever. So, you have to imagine at 12, going into a door factory sucks. And I remember carrying lacquered door trim. So for people that don't know what lacquer is, that shit is sticky. And they would lacquer the door trim. And then I had to carry it on, for people that are just listening, they won't see what I'm doing with my arms, but it would lay across the back of my arms. And I would carry it from one place to the next as it was drying, which means that lacquer was drying in my arm hair. And even at 12, I had just enough that going home, that would suck because you basically have to rip your arm hair out to get the lacquer out of your arm hair. So yeah, that was not fun. And the Nintendo with tax and a game, I think ended up costing like $140 or something like that. You can run the math on how long it takes to, at $2.10 an hour, get to $140. But let me tell you, one, I worked the exact number of days that I had to work to get my Nintendo. And then when I got it, dude, the joy and power that I felt walking into that store. And I remember for some reason it fell when my parents were on vacation. So they went away for the weekend. And I had my sister had a friend who was a guy that was just old enough to drive. So he took me to pick up, to buy my Nintendo and the game. And dude, I felt like a man. I felt like a man. And there was something about the anger of having asked for a Nintendo from the time I was 8 years old and being told no, and thinking legitimately every birthday and Christmas, they're 100% going to give it to me this time. Nope, 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 nope. And then having to work in that door factory, yanking my arm hair out and a ton of other shit, by the way, that sucked. And finally buying it for myself, that created an addiction that I was like, oh my God, if you work hard, you can have anything you want. And so my dad, literally, I remember this. So I worked all these blue collar jobs, working in factories of one kind or another, having to get certified to drive a forklift. Like that was my teenage years. Now flash forward 17 years later or whatever, and we're at Quest and a big truck backs up with all this equipment that we just bet the whole company. We took all the savings we had and put it into this equipment. A big fucking semi backs up and they're like, where's your guy's forklift? And we're like, forklift? Why do we need a forklift? And the guy's like, how the hell are you going to get the equipment off the truck? And we're like, but we have like one of those docks. Can't you just pull up to it? And he's like, A, they don't align height wise. And B, do you want me to just push the shit off? He was like, even if they did, how am I supposed to get this off the truck? It's all on pallets. And so we're like, oh my God. And I looked at my partners and said, I'm a certified forklift driver. If we can find a forklift, I can actually drive this shit off. So we walked over to the neighbors in the business park and said, hey, can we borrow your forklift? The guy's like, yeah, man, go for it. I grabbed the forklift and we shot a video of me looking at the camera. And I said, Dad, wax on, wax off. Because my dad said, dude, one day you'll never know when, but you're going to need these skills. And I was like so angry. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I am never going to need to drive a forklift. And there I was with, worth God knows how many millions of dollars at that point. And I was the only one that knew how to drive a forklift. I was like, fuck, this is crazy. So work ethic, doing shit you don't want to do. It is shocking how it becomes important at some point when you least expect it and most need it.
Why did your dad have you drive a forklift?
The honest answer is he wanted me to go to college. And so he wanted me to do things he thought I would hate and know that getting an education was worth it. And so he was just like, no, I want you to do a lot of manual labor. So we used to have to, my sister and I used to have to cut and stack wood it's so funny to think now how different the world is. So I grew up in Tacoma, Washington. So I was right on the edge of rural. So what you could do is you could go, and if a tree had fallen, because there are just trees everywhere where I grew up, if a tree had fallen, you could cut it apart with a chainsaw, split it with an axe, and then take it back to your house and use it as firewood. So we didn't have, at least when I was quite young, we didn't have like a heat pump or anything. So if you wanted the house to be warm, you were asked to put wood in a fireplace. And so my sister and I were in charge. My dad would cut the tree apart, and then my sister and I had to split the wood, haul it, take it home, stack it. And if you've ever had pitch all over your hands, that's a good time. So he wanted me to do all this stuff that really sucked so that I would know that I wanted to get an education. And little did he know that I would end up founding a manufacturing company, and I'd be back blue collar all day, every day for years. But it was super powerful. I can't be broken from a work ethic standpoint, because my whole life I've been doing work that I hated to the core of my existence, but had to see it through. And one of the reasons I didn't have kids is I knew I would have to do the same thing to them to toughen them up. And I didn't want to do it because I'm really grateful. I hated it growing up, but I am so grateful now. My parents loved me to death, treated me so well, but made me do a lot of hard shit. And there was no quitting. It just wasn't on the menu.
It's so weird that you say that, because another part of you said you needed the David Goggins element because you felt like you were going to quit. You wouldn't see things through. You were lazy in some respect, but here you're telling me you're doing a bunch of hard work. What am I missing here?
Dude, this is like, okay, so there's retelling my story as mythology. And then there's retelling my story into like super confusing, like, wait, but so like, for instance, if you really want me to fuck you up, I was the laziest human on planet Earth. And the only reason I was doing all that work is because my parents were like, if you want to live in this fucking house, you're going to go work in a paint factory. If you want the Nintendo, you're going to work in the door factory. And I didn't have an option. Like, you were going to go split the wood and carry it. Like my parents were very good at just like, it wasn't like they were asking. In fact, my dad would say that, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, go cut the wood. Now, I don't think my dad ever once spanked me or hit me. My mom did. My mom was a ninja, which is a whole nother thing, which I am so grateful to how hardcore that woman is, because she is the reason I stayed on the straight and narrow. But when my dad said, and I'm not asking, you just fucking did it. And so I'm lazy. I hate it. I'm resentful. It's building up this anger in me to never let somebody tell me what I'm going to do ever again in my life, which explains why I'm an entrepreneur and not an employee, because I have a dysfunctional relationship with authority. So that all gets instilled in me and having to do all this stuff I don't want to do. And then, so now I'm super lazy, only doing things because my parents tell me to do them. And I almost don't leave for college because I have this panic moment and I don't want to go do it. My mom is quietly assuming I'm going to fail, but she basically kicks me out of the nest, never tells me I'm going to fail, but she believes it because she's looking at me going, this kid is so lazy. My best friend in high school assumes I'm going to fail. His exact quote was, I assumed you were going to marshmallow your way through life. So now you've got this kid, has a real problem with authority, has these crazy big dreams. I'm this kid growing up almost rural, telling everybody I'm going to be rich one day, right? All my family and friends are like, what a joke, right? Nobody where I was from like really thought that I was going to be rich. They're just like, whatever. And I go to college, and even I'm like, yo, am I going to be able to pull this off? And so through a whole set of events, I got into the right college, but I didn't even apply to the film school. I didn't understand. I didn't look into it. My parents didn't know. Like, we were just all wildly ignorant, right? And this is all before the internet. So I realized, holy shit, what do I have to do to get into film school? They say you need a 1300 on your SATs. I got a 990 and I took it twice. That was my combined score. So I'm like, oh my God, like I'm never going to get in. All my dreams are crashing. And I found out that one of the people on the admissions committee would let you join him for lunch. So I was like, yo. So I went to meet this guy. I was the only one, which to this day I cannot fathom is true. And statistically speaking, you're more likely to get into Harvard Law than you are USC Film School. So I'm like, oh my God, the odds are already stacked against me and I don't have the grades or the SATs. So I go and meet this guy and I say, look, I have terrible SATs. What do I need to do to get into film school? And he says, you need to get good grades. He's like, if you get good enough grades, I won't even look at your SATs because SAT just tells me how well you're supposed to do in college. By the time you're eligible to apply, you'll have done 2 years of college. So I'll know how well you're doing. So I'll just look at your grades. Now, I did very well in high school, got an amazing GPA. Only catch, I cheated the entire time. So now I'm like, I'm in college. Now, why? Between the end of my high school year and the beginning of my freshman year in college, why did I make myself the promise? To myself, not to anybody else. Sink or swim, A or F, I will never cheat again. So now I'm like, fuck, he's just told me I have to get good grades to get into film school. So now to make my dreams come true, I have to get good grades. But before I learned that, I promised myself no matter what, I wouldn't cheat. So now who do I want to be? Is this a do whatever it takes to get into film school? Cheat if you need to? Or is this, all right, we now have an honor code and we're going to live by it? And I decided, hey, it doesn't make sense to cheat to get into film school and then cheat my way through film school because this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I actually have to get good at this. So there it's like, well, wow, Tom, that was a really powerful realization. And then for literally 4 years, I don't do anything but work. For 2 years to get into film school, I study. I lock myself in my dorm room. I don't party. I don't drink. I don't do a single drug. I don't have a sip of alcohol. I don't even go on a single date for 4 years. I am the most hardcore motherfucker you will ever meet in your life. I get into film school. I become one of only 4 people selected to do a senior thesis film. It's fucking crazy. I owned that bitch. I was like, God damn, like I'm here to run shit. Then I graduate and I'm like, fuck, what do I do now? I had no idea. I totally screwed up my final film. It was terrible. I got smacked in the face with, I didn't have talent as a filmmaker and I didn't have the word yet. So to me, I'm just like, you don't have talent. So now it is like this dark, hopeless phase where I'm coming home from dead end job after dead end job with my college degree, but still working retail, selling video games. And I would come home and I would lay on the carpet of my unfurnished apartment because I could not afford furniture. And I would just lay there going, what the fuck am I going to do with my life? I have no idea how to break into Hollywood. There's no such thing as YouTube. There's no like video cameras. Like you don't walk around with a video camera in your pocket. Like that wasn't a thing. All video cameras were trash. They were garbage. So I'm like, I honestly have no idea how I'm ever going to succeed in my life. So now the same kid that just was a total ninja at film school is now laying in bed 4 to 5 hours a day, every day. I was on unemployment at one point, and I would literally just play video games for like 13 or 14 hours a day, like it was my job. It was crazy. I would just play through the night. I would have to set an alarm. This is a true story. I would have to set an alarm to make a 10 p.m. movie. What kind of vampire has to set an alarm so that they don't sleep through a 10 p.m. movie? Because I would stay up until like 6, 7 in the morning, sleep all day. Oh, it's crazy. So now it's like my whole life is like this stutter stop where I'll get like one insight and I'll be really honorable and hardcore during film school. But then like all of that discipline that I showed that I had, like it went out the window. And that's why I tell people follow through is about desire. I wanted film school. I could see it. I knew what that meant. That was going to secure the rest of my life. So I was like, I'm in. I'll do whatever it takes. Once I didn't know what I wanted anymore, because I didn't think that I was talented enough to become a filmmaker. So now I'm just scared. Now I'm scared. I don't have a growth mindset yet. So I don't know what to do about the fact that I'm scared. I don't know what to do about the fact that I'm not good enough, right? Because I'm not thinking I'm not good enough yet. I'm just thinking I'm not good enough. And so I lay in bed. And so then it takes this whole moment of shame with my wife or my to-be wife and my to-be father-in-law and all of this. And then I realized one really key thing, and then I will shut up because this has been a long monologue here. I realized there's a difference between having ambition, and having the drive to see it through. But by then, so in the height of my depression, before I meet my wife, in the laying on the carpet phase, I begin reading about the brain, and that changed everything.